and welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. You all hereby know that this series is mainly and specifically for those students who want to master the Indian economy. Particularly in this series, what we have the objective is understanding the concepts neatly and in depth, because that is what UPSC syllabus mentions. It clearly mentions that the students are supposed to have a depth of understanding. That is the clear line written in your syllabus if you have checked it once. Now, the thing is that we are hereby discussing this book by SRIRAM sir himself, and currently we are discussing chapter number 6 or 7, and the chapter says is about pandemic and the post-pandemic recovery. We already have discussed what was pandemic and how it impacted GDP growth, how the agricultural and rural economy was impacted, and what was the consequence in terms of inflation. Post that, today we will be discussing about production linked incentive scheme. Once this is done, the chapter is done, and tomorrow we will be starting with fiscal policy. Now there are multiple objectives of fiscal policy, and I have discussed them through multiple stories of Barack Obama administration. Prior to that, we have already discussed it with respect to UK, with respect to Japan's economy, how the economy is changed. Multiple case studies we have discussed about fiscal policy. But tomorrow is the big day when we start fiscal policy, because there will be something which will set the tone for the economy, budgeting, planning, and what all is actually done in it. Because we discussed 5-year plans from 1951 to 2017. We discussed all the types of planning. We discussed case studies of multiple countries. So tomorrow we will be understanding that what all comes under fiscal policy and how government actually manages it. That is important for both prelims and mains. Moving ahead into the topic, I just want to highlight over here that we have, for you, I have already covered all the concepts of Indian economy which are relevant to prelims exam. Whether that is prelims of any exam in the India, say it is SBI or it is SEBI or it is RBI, grade B, EPFO, whatever exam it is state PCS one-day exam, all the concepts of Indian economy have been summarized into one single marathon, and that is this Mahasangram. Simple. What you need to do is you need to go to watch this marathon through this QR code. Once you scan it, you will go and watch the 9-hour marathon and you will be done with all the concepts. Now moving ahead, we have one more thing here, that is all the UPSC PYQs have been discussed under this 3.5-hour marathon, where 2015 to 2025 all 10-year PYQs have been discussed. Further, if you are still facing problems in understanding the basics of economy, what you need to do is you just need this I would say document. This document will definitely help you and has helped hundreds of students to understand economy, because this summarizes all the NCERTs of economy from 6th to 12th class. All the NCERTs have been summarized in this document. If you want this document, you can do one thing simply. You can go to this WhatsApp group or this Telegram channel. You can find it there. If you do not find it, ping me over here, directly WhatsApp me, I'll send it to you, and that is it. Once you connect to the right place, you will be guided by the universe itself. Now, let's move ahead and understand the production linked incentive scheme. But before we understand this, I just want to highlight over here that there is an important concept of output gaps. Output gaps in an economy. What does this mean? It means that when there is a demand, either the demand has increased or has remained stagnant. Say for example, last year we had 10 people who wanted to buy a car. Now, last year we had 10 people who wanted to buy a car, and this year we have 15 people who want to buy a car. Simple. Or last year we had 10 people who wanted to buy a car, and this year we have only 10 people who want to buy a car. Same customer base, no change in customer base. There are two scenarios. You need to understand it properly. But last year, the production of cars was 10 cars, but this year the production is again 10 cars. Tell me what will happen? What will happen? Simple. Or I would rather write it this way, that the production has decreased to 5 cars. What will happen? Tell me. Very basic thing. We have a demand of 10 cars, we have a supply of 10 cars. It means the market equilibrium will match demand and supply, and there will be no effect of inflation as such. Too much inflation will not be there. Minor inflation could be there because of the increase of, I would say, cost of production. Say salaries have increased, say interest rates have increased, somewhat like that. Minor change in price would be there. But tell me what will happen over here. Now we have only 5 cars, and the people who are creating the demand, who want this car, they are either 15 or 10. In both the cases, there will be one thing for sure, that will be inflation. Why? Because the demand is exceeding the supply, which means that the supply is less and demand is more. This means that there is more hands who have money, they are chasing few goods. That is what inflation particularly is defined as. Do you understand this? Now, I'll give you a scenario that why this production of cars decreased from 10 to 5. Why? Because there was a pandemic. Simple. One more thing, if government wants to say, or there is one more thing, say for example, if government or this demand of the cars, why didn't it increase as the year increased, as the number of people increased, as the population increased, people might have increased their income, why didn't the demand increase? Because say there was, I would say, uncertainty, which we usually define as an external shock to the economy. Do you remember the prison economy? Do you remember the case study of mobile phone, which usually was not calculated by economists, but yes, that provided an economic external economic shock to the economy, because that was not perceived that this technology will help or will, I would say, come in picture, and that will change the dynamics of, I would say, economy. So therefore, or say we discussed last time that tsunami, we discussed earthquakes, we discussed multiple other things which usually are not taken care in the planning itself, because we do not know what will happen in the future. So therefore, what is happening over here? Very simple thing. Here, see, the production decreased. Why did the production decrease? And why is there a stagnation in demand? Maybe due to any change. Maybe due to pandemic, maybe due to external shocks like pandemic, or say earthquake, or say tsunami, or any other thing. Simple. What happened in automobile sector in pandemic era, in 2019, 2020, 2021 era, what happened to automobile sector? First, the production of the automobile sector decreased. Second, the demand of the automobile sector decreased. Why? Tell me, why did this happen? What was the reason for this shock in supply and demand? What was the reason? First, the first reason was simple. Because automobile sector faced restrictions in terms of lockdown, there were massive layoffs. People said that if we are supposed not to go out, we are supposed to use public transport, we are supposed to sit at homes, why do we need to buy a car? Very simple. People said that if we have less money with ourselves, why do we need to spend it? We can save it, the consumption decreased. In this scenario, what should government actually do at this point of time? Should government provide money to people? should government provide money to people in order to increase the demand? Or should government incentivize the producers? Should we incentivize the producers so that they increase the production? Now tell me one thing. What should happen and how is this supposed to actually work? How is this equation going to settle down in the economy? That is a question. Now once we understand this, you need to see that first of all we need to restore the production because the demand has already remained stagnant. If at this point of time we hand over a lot of money to people through DBT, through universal basic income, through any sort of, I would say, investment, what will it do? The production has decreased. There are only 5 cars and now the demand has increased because we have given them more money. Now there are not only 10 people who want to buy the car, there are 12 people who want to buy the car. Due to this 5 and 10 ratio, the inflation was already on rise. Now we are giving money to them. It means the inflation will increase more. So therefore, the first thing which we have to do is first to restore the production. Now once we restore the production, we increase the production, then only we can think about the consumption part. Because once you start correcting the market sentiment, once you start increasing the production, then only you can think about this. Why? Because due to the production itself, the money will start flowing in the economy. Do you remember the example of cash put into bottles? Do you remember the example that we can say people that dig the pits and fill them back and they will earn money? Because this production will start employment, that will start the circle of money back again. Once that starts, this demand will somehow get stimulated indirectly and then demand will also increase. This is the exact thing what government did. This is the exact thing what government did under production linked incentive scheme. What is the scheme? The word itself says production linked incentive. That if you produce more, you will be incentivized more. Very simple. If you increase your production of certain key areas or certain, say, if I am producing these pens in economy and government says that if you increase sales of this pen, if you increase the production of this pen, we will give you a 1% rebate in tax. Simple. What will I do? I will save, say, 1% of the tax. I will invest that money back into my resources. I will increase my production. Once the production increases, the wages increase, the other things increase, the cost of production increases, raw material increases, the demand increases in the market, the consumption and investment increases, and that will set the chain for upward growth in the economy. Do you understand? So therefore, India started it way back in 2014 with Make in India. And from Make in India, we reached the production linked incentive scheme. So what is it? First of all, we introduced the National Manufacturing Policy in 2011. Further, it was improvised to Make in India and then to production linked incentive scheme. So 2011, 2014, 2020 and then after 2020, we expanded the scope of production linked incentive scheme. Earlier it was for 3 sectors and then 11 more sectors were added and total 14 sectors were kept under production linked incentive scheme. So what are these 14 strategic sectors? First is electronics, mobile phones, minerals, or I would say critical minerals, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, manufacturing of medical devices, automobiles, pharma drugs, specialty steel, telecom and networking, electronics, white goods, food products, textiles, high efficiency and advanced chemistry. Now what all are these goods about? Why? Tell me. Because these are the goods with which the industry sets in rolling. Say for example, mobile manufacturing. Samsung opened a large assembly unit in India, Noida. Critical minerals. This year, this is the story of 2020. This year we introduced 3 critical mineral corridors in budget 2026. Huh. Do you understand this? That how are we actually doing this thing? There has been clear, twice UPSC asked a question, 2025, 2026 on critical minerals. 30 critical minerals and rare earth elements, REEs. UPSC asked 2 questions. First in 2025, 1 question, 26, second question. Manufacturing of medical devices and drugs. Why? Because India had a dependency of 70% of API, active pharmaceutical ingredients. We used to import API from China. Now what we are doing? We are increasing the production of this API so that we do not keep on depending on that supply chain which is fragile, which was uncovered by the pandemic, which we saw that due to this pandemic the supply chain was disrupted. So therefore we are focusing more on our India's resilience and reliance, self-reliance. Do you understand? That is why these 14 sectors have been kept under high priority. So wherever you find these 14 keywords in newspapers, remember it is important. The first 2 have already been asked by UPSC, rest are yet to be asked, and in the upcoming, I think drones were also asked by UPSC, solar PV modules asked by UPSC, rest of the keywords you need to keep in mind, and wherever you find them in newspaper, remember that news is important for you. Moving ahead, what are the main objectives of this production linked incentive scheme? Very simple. The first objective is to attract investment, sustainable growth, ensure efficiency in manufacturing, make sure that India is globally competitive enough, and strengthen the manufacturing by boosting the backbone of manufacturing sector. Understood? And then reduce the imports, as I said about APIs. Once you reduce the imports of APIs, that is how it will help. Understood? Next, key goals of production linked incentive scheme. First is that we need to make sure that India comes under the global champions. That is by creating world leading manufacturing companies. And along with that, there are sunrise sectors which boost the manufacturing in future oriented industries. अब इसमें याद रखना है that PLI scheme के जो अंदर ये goals दिए हुए हैं, है ना, goals of PLI scheme, largely we have achieved these in terms of employment, in terms of boosting the exports and global integration. Say for example, how India actually did this. The first step was to provide an alternative to China, because all the MNCs who were earlier attracted towards China because of the cheap labor and other, facilities which China used to provide, now India gives them a reshore component and dual sourcing strategies, so that we can do 2 things. We can source our imports from multiple other nations. Along with that, we will provide manufacturing incentives. Due to these manufacturing incentives, what will happen? That the producers, they will first earn the profit and they will increase their sales. Further, the MSMEs linkages are now also growing to PLI scheme. Now once we understand this, what have been the projections? The projection was to generate a capital expenditure of 4 lakh crores and 60 lakh new jobs. However, we have been able to generate 30 lakh CR additional production and 40% of import coverage of India's total imports through production linked incentive scheme. This too has been achieved. These were the projections. But how PLI actually works? There are 4 steps under which PLI works. So it works through incentive structure by giving an incentive of 3 to 7% on the additional sales. What they were earlier selling, in addition to that, if the sales increase in the new year, then they will get incentives, financial incentives. Eligibility is very simple. There is a threshold of 10 CR for MSMEs, up to 1000 CR for others. Further, the GST coverage and flexible operations, so that new manufacturing units can also participate in PLI and have the benefits of PLI. Do we understand this? at the end we should understand that there is one more component of PLI, that is electronics component manufacturing scheme. Now what is this? This is to boost the domestic production of semiconductors, PCBs, sensors, connectors, passive parts, and this will be operational from this year 25-26 to 2030-2032. Now understand, this is the first we introduced Make in India, or earlier we had the policy 2011 National Manufacturing Policy, then Make in India, then PLI for 3 sectors, now PLI for 14 sectors, and further addition of electronics component scheme. So therefore this is the expansion of PLI in more sectors. That is why we are covering it in detail. These are just numbers. One of the most critical number, that is direct employment provided under PLI or under this electronics component manufacturing scheme, can boost the jobs. Around 1 lakh jobs can be created more. This is why is this important, because you can directly use this fact in your answers, particularly in the introduction. Now what have been the achievements? First, realized investment has increased to 1.46 lakh crores as was the target. The target was 4 lakh crores but by the August 2024 it was 1.46 lakh crores and the projection is that it will be increased to 2 lakh CR. Production and sales has also increased to 12.5 lakh CRs. Understood? So therefore PLI has been a good I would say scheme or a successful scheme in terms of achieving its targets, and the export growth has also increased to 4 lakh CR. So there has been an uptick in terms of exports, employment and production, all the three, due to this PLI. The sector specific transformations are highlighted over here. If you get a question in your mains about any of the sectors, say whether it is a question about mobile phones or telecoms, you can start your question by these two statements. India became the net exporter and second largest producer globally. Telecom sector, you can start with this fact. These are ready-made introductions for you, so that if a question strikes in mains, you can directly start with these two facts as an introduction. Simple. With this, we complete the PLI. I wish you all the best and I thank you all for being here. Now, what we need to do is, we need to be regular in this series. The next topic will be fiscal policy. We'll be covering it from, I would say, minute details to comprehensive analysis. Everything will be covered about fiscal policy and we will master the concept. That is what our goal is. Till then, thank you once again. Jai Hind.